If you were getting married today and I had to do your eye makeup, this is the look that I would do on you and myself. So if you want to see how I created it, then just keep on watching. I'm starting with my Morphe x Jaclyn Hill. This is the volume 1 palette. It actually is no longer available. It is discontinued, but I have it and I use it. And honestly, you guys, I don't know what I'm going to do when I run out of the Silk Cream shade, because that is one of the main reasons why I have bought this palette over and over and over and over and over again. So the first shade I'm going to pick up is my Silk Cream on a BK 201 brush. I actually wanted to show you guys this because this is what I've been doing lately. Instead of like tapping the excess off my brush or blowing it, what I've been doing lately is I'm going into the product like this and picking up the product. This one, obviously, it's just around the rim. And so with this brush, I kind of have to go around that way, but usually you just go straight into the eyeshadow. And then as you can see up here, I have this little spot where I keep like, see how much excess is coming off? So what I've been doing is using the lid of the palettes and I'm tapping off any excess. This way, when I need to come back and get just a tiny bit more eyeshadow to build up that pigment, I grab it off of here instead of blowing it into the air into non-existence, and then I can't use it. So this is a way for me to get a little bit more use out of my eyeshadows. I'm going to start in my crease, and I'm just going to start with stippling motions, and where I start placing the product first is where it's going to give me the most pigment payoff. So that is why I always start in my crease with shadows, because there's already going to be a shadow there. So it kind of hides any excess pigment that you may pick up. So I'll blend it out into the crease first, and I'm just going to move like inner to outer corner, and this is going to start blending out that shadow. And then whatever I have excess, I'm just going to blend it upwards towards my brow and out towards like the tail end of my brow. This is going to really start warming up and shaping out your eyeshadow, and like softly blend this down into my nose contour. That way the whole eye look and makeup look is flowing together. So this is where I'm going to pick up a little bit of the eyeshadow off of the lid, because I just need a little bit because I want to deepen up the pigment right here. So I'm just lightly going to tap it in there. I'm now going to use my Anastasia Soft Glam 2 palette, and I'm picking up the shade Dusty Rose right here, and I'm using a BK 202 brush. So on this brush, it's more of a pointed brush. So what I'm going to do is use the side of the brush to be picking up my pigment. So I'm using the side like this, rather than going in with the tip of it, because I want to use the side of it for the next part of my eyeshadow. This is going to match the shape of my eye better. And then again, I'm just going to use the mirror, and we're just going to tap off any excess. Maybe you guys can see a little bit better. See how much is coming off? So I just tap until I can see it, like a lot of the product is gone, and then I just blow off anything that could be left over on the brush. I just wanted to zoom you guys back in. So another really important part of doing my makeup is I will look my head back, but I'll look my eyes down in the mirror, and this exposes my eyelid in its most natural state, so I can see better where I want to build my smoky eye. So with the brush, again, I'm going to use the side that I picked up the eyeshadow with, and I'm just going to start stippling this in the outer half of my crease. Again, I usually like to start in my crease because then if there's too much pigment, it's easier for me to blend it out from a place that's already going to be shadowed, if that makes sense. And then once I get kind of like a feeling of how much pigment I have to work with, then I will start working this up onto the brow bone, going in the direction of the arch of my brow, and then I like to take it over and blend it out towards the tail end of the brow, but I don't like to go as high as the first shade I used. So in this case, I don't take it as high as Silk Cream. Another thing I envision when I do my makeup is think of where like a natural shadow is going to cast, and wherever that shadow is, as it gets like further away from the middle and darkest point of the shadow, it gets lighter. So when I do my actual eyeshadow and my contour, I think about where the natural darkest point of that shadow is going to be. And contour is a little bit different, but that's for another video. So darkest part of my eyeshadow is going to be here. So from this point, this direction, this direction, this direction, or this direction, it's going to get lighter, if that makes sense. And then as I work with my eyeshadow and I'm starting to build on top, then I think, where do I want more depth within my eye? And it's always on like my outer corner. I feel like if I make this look a little deeper right here, it helps lift my eye just a little bit. If I put light or like some sort of highlighter on the inner corner, that's gonna really open up my eye, and it creates my eye to have this more open and elongated and bigger shape. For my outer corner, I am taking the shades Mocha and Mulberry on a BK 211 brush, and I'm going to grab just a little bit more of the shade Mocha than I do Mulberry. So I'm going to get 2 to 1 and I go back in 1, 1, 1. So I will have a little bit more of the brown tone than I do the cranberry tone. I just want a simple and light hit of a berry tone to bring out that color for my blush. So now I'm going to use the tip of the brush because that's how I picked up the eyeshadow, and I'm just going to start stippling it on the outer third of my crease, just like this. And again, once I can kind of tell the pigment payoff I have to work with, then I will start moving outward like a little bit further up onto that crease and then onto the brow bone just a little bit. And then again, I will take it fully out in that crease. And this is going to shape the outer corner of my eye. Again, like I just stated, it's going to create more depth here so I can highlight here, creating a new, bigger, wider looking eye. And then once I have the shape I like, I'm just gonna go over those edges to diffuse everything out. That way everything is very seamless and really well blended. Another thing when we're working with darker shadows is once you get the pigment and the tone payoff that you like, wipe the brush off before actually blending out those edges. This way you're only working with the pigment that's on your eye and it's only going to blend out as far as it actually can. You're not adding any excess product from whatever is on the brush. And then this way you're getting a nice clean and diffused blend and not getting a very like punched in the eye looking smoky eye. If you accidentally get a little bit too much of a dark pigment on your eye, one of the tricks that I like to do is take one of the brushes that I just used. This is what I put on Silk Cream. This is what I put on Dusty Rose. I'm going to use actually Dusty Rose because that's the last one I did. And I will just go over those edges really lightly like this to just buff them out and pick up any excess pigment and also lay down a lighter pigment. Then I'm going to take Silk Cream brush. Nothing extra is on these brushes. And then I just go over that. And that's only if you're gonna get too much pigment there and you're like, oh, it's getting too dark, and you catch yourself really quickly. Try this trick out too. Now for the star of the show, we're using this Pat McGrath's little palette here, and I'm going to pick up the shade on top. It's called Mercurial Rose, I think is how you say it. And the brush I'm going to apply that with is this Morphe M456 brush. I love applying my shimmer shadows with this brush because it is a longer, flatter brush. And so it really gets down there and it's like the perfect size for my eyelid. Once I have my shimmer on the brush, I'm going to use this NYX Matte Finish Setting Spray to actually spray the shimmer on the brush. And then I'm going to just use my makeup towel here to set the brush down to pick up any excess moisture before applying it to my eye. Now that I have my eyeshadow wet, I'm just simply going to start patting and pressing this onto the center part of my eyelid. And then once I can get a feel of the eyeshadow pigment payoff, I'm going to start working it more towards my inner corner. And I do take my shimmers up from the inner corner and I just follow that hollowed out part of my eye. And then I follow it down into my outer corner. And then I do like to diffuse this up into that crease because again, when you have hooded eyes, if you blend them up, and I have slightly hooded eyes, so if you take your shadows up a little higher, you're going to still see it when your eye is open. I want to add the slightest amount of warmth to this look. So what I'm going to do is take the shade Butter here out of the Jaclyn Hill palette on the BK201 brush. So this is the same brush that I applied the Silk Cream shade with. And I'm going to use the tip of the brush and just grab a little bit of that product, tap off any excess. And then what I'm going to do is lightly start tapping this into the crease. Again, this is where you're going to see how much pigment is coming off, and then lightly going up onto that brow bone. And this really helps like revive the shades that are underneath. And again, it's going to add just the slightest amount of warmth to the look, taking it to the absolute next level. If you're a little afraid or intimidated to use a dense brush, you can also use a really big fluffy brush like this. This is the Morphe M510 brush. Nothing's on this, but I just wanted to show you, you'll just fluff it like this across the brow bone. I'm going to build up the lower lash line. I'm going to pick up the same shades in the same order, but now I'm going to use a BK203 brush. I have Silk Cream on the tip of this brush, so I'm going to look my head down, but look my eyes up. This is going to help really expose that lower lash line, and then just kind of using your spidey senses, slowly just set the brush down and then just move in like little back and forth shimmy motions, and you're just going to apply this right at as close as you can on that lower lash line. And I go from inner to outer corner with Silk Cream just to get the warmth all over that lower lash line. I'm now applying Dusty Rose on the outer 2/3 of my lower lash line. And the only thing I'm really doing different with this, instead of with Silk Cream, I was taking it like this and kind of moving it with the same shape of my eye like that. Instead of doing that motion with the second shade I usually use, I like to almost work from the outer corner to the lower lash line in a straight line. So as you can see, I'm not moving my head. I really just want to keep this, and I'm just moving this back and forth. Basically, I'm just moving in this direction, just using little back and forth motions like this to blend it out. Now for the outer corner of my eye, I actually switch over to the BK 211 brush, which is the same brush that I already applied my upper outer corner with. So all I'm going to do is just look up, and I'm just going to start using a small shimmy motion just in the outer third of my lower lash line. And I'm actually just dragging this down just a little bit. And then I'll also take it in once I can like tell that there's barely any pigment left. I've been doing my makeup long enough that now I know. So now I'm just going to take this in just a tiny bit on that lower lash line, as close as I can to my lash line as possible. And then what I like to do with whatever is left is close my eye down a little bit and apply this to that upper corner and kind of make the V shape on the outer corner of my eye, connecting the upper and lower lash lines together. And this just creates, again, a really nice shape for my eye. It's going to take it out, like I told you, but it's going to create a lot of depth right here, making it look a little more sunk in. And again, with the highlight here, it's going to just make the eye pop and look bigger in a way. I just wanted to point this out because I always see a lot of people asking why I'm putting colors on top of colors. And this is why I build up a smoky eye this way, because I love the way that this ombres over, even on like the eyelid and the lower lash line. So Silk Cream is in this area here. And then over here we have about the Dusty Rose, and then over here we have the Mocha and Mulberry. And by allowing these to be blended out just a little bit over top of each other, it just creates that really diffused and really blended, smooth, soft smoky eye. So now I have that Morphe M456 brush to apply the shimmer on my lower lash line. It's the same brush that I applied the shimmer to on my eyelid. I'm just now going to use the very tip of the brush. I already have the product and it's already been sprayed with setting spray. So what I'm going to do is actually look in the mirror because it's wet and I don't want to poke my eye with this one. So I usually like look in the mirror to know where I'm going to set it before I actually look up and set it down. And then I'm just going to use, again, those small little shimmy motions, keeping this close up to that lower lash line. I'm blending it on the inner half, really coming into that inner corner, and then dragging it out nice and lightly on that halfway mark. That way it's like super, super light and thin, and it's just going to be a little wash on that part of your eyelid. So now what I'm going to do, I don't like how harsh that line is right here. So I'm going to go back in with that BK 211 brush, and I'm just lightly going to use whatever is on this brush. I'm just lightly going to look up and dust at that point to blend out any harsh line right there. And then what I'm going to do is use the BK 202 brush. I'm using the tip of the brush now to pick up a little bit of that shade Butter. And what I'm going to do is use this, and I'm going to start at that mark where I want to blend out that harsh line, just because I want this to be a small, small wash of the orange to create that really warmth tone. And the last step, I can't be talking about an inner corner highlight without actually doing it with you guys. So the last thing I'm going to do is do an inner corner highlight. I am using the shade here. It is in Light on the Jaclyn Hill palette, and I'm using a BK X Angie Hot and Flashy, and the number of the brush is A504. I like a beaming bright inner corner highlight. So what I'm going to do is use the tip of the brush, but as I pick up the product here, I'm also going to be spinning the brush like this. So I know the entire tip of the brush is getting covered in eyeshadow. I'm going to just start swirling those in like a little circular motion. And then I'm going to start making that circle a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, kind of moving up and down like this. So I'm getting the upper part of that inner corner and the lower part of the inner corner, but also bringing it out like this. So it's almost like you're doing a full circle. I also bring the shadow a little bit back into the other shimmer shades. This way it all blends in and there's no harsh lines either. You guys, and the last thing I like to do to diffuse out any sort of edge and add just the sprinkle of warmth to the inner corner, I'm going to take that big Morphe M510 brush. Nothing much is on this, it's just whatever is on the lid of the palette. And all I'm going to do is kind of touch this like that really lightly on the inner corner, and then again on that lower lash line inner corner, and then just kind of work my way out. Very, very lightly do that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want more beauty content, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Also, follow me on LTK. It is where I link the products I use. Other than that, you guys, I love you so freaking much, and I will see you in my next one.